I have been on female hormones for 3 years, and it has completely changed the way I look at the world.
I feel more at peace. I feel a lot more emotional. I feel lots of ups and downs. But as a whole, I just feel a lot more centered.
So every week, I stick this thing in my leg.
There are certain things about taking hormone replacement therapy as a way to help to alleviate dysphoria. I've been doing that for about a year, and it's helped a lot.
You've been on hormones for 3 years now. Isn't that crazy?
Yes, it's so crazy. And I've been thinking a lot about how much that has affected me.
Just a general timeline. Shaye came out to me as transgender in 2019, September 2019. And then it wasn't until January 2021 that she started hormone replacement therapy, or HRT for short. This video is sponsored by Patio Well. If you've seen our videos in the past, we are always looking for new ways to store our home products and the many holiday decorations that we like to put up. Patio Well is a company specializing in metal and plastic sheds, as well as deck boxes. They sent us their metal 8x10 foot shed, but they also have new plastic sheds on pre-sale now that are a lot more simple to assemble with 35% fewer screws. As far as the assembly for our shed, it was fairly straightforward. I can tell you that if we can put it together, pretty much anybody can. Patio Well's instructions are really clear, and they also have video tutorials, which really simplifies the process. The final result was a shed that is waterproof, UV resistant, stable, and well ventilated.
And it wasn't too bad. It was pretty intuitive to put together. It's going to be really nice to have our stuff stored outside. We've had everything in the garage.
Click the link in our description and use the code GS16 to get 16% off Patio Well's entire store. At the time, that was like a really big decision, but I'm so glad that you took that first step.
Yeah, hormone replacement therapy is something that a lot of trans people use as a way to alleviate gender dysphoria. And it's something that there's a common misconception with, where people think that trans people are going on hormone replacement therapy for the physical changes. And that might be true for a lot of trans people, especially if you're transitioning socially. But it's also been proven to help with just mental health in general.
I remember when we started researching HRT, I was really surprised learning how many trans people or people that just experience gender dysphoria take hormones but don't necessarily transition. And I think I had the impression that it was like a cosmetic thing, but it's very much, it's that the hormones in your body don't feel right to you. Is that like how you would describe it?
Yeah, in fact, for me, that was the biggest reason I decided to go on it. For me and really a lot of people, going on hormone replacement therapy is just to focus on just alleviating the dysphoria. And so I had no intentions of necessarily socially transitioning. It was just like, I need help. And everything I'm reading from all the 3 major American medical associations are all saying that this is a way to help people. So for me going on it, it was strictly just to alleviate that.
Yeah. Well, and even though you knew there was so much research to support it and it was probably really going to help you, that was still a really hard decision to go on it.
Oh, it definitely was, just because I was worried about the physical changes. So I didn't necessarily want the social transition. I wanted the dysphoria to be gone. And you know, it's funny, I've talked to people since who had the similar concerns, that where they actually go on it for a little while, then they go off. And so in my case, I was on it for, I believe, 3 months. I started to feel really good. And then because I was feeling good, thought I didn't need to take it anymore. And so I remember coming to you and saying, Amanda, I don't know if I should be on this anymore, and I'm worried about the changes. And I remember your reaction at the time was like, are you sure? I think you should stay on it. And I'm like, no, I think I'm good. But it was just because I was feeling good, right?
Well, and it's interesting too, because I think there's another misconception is that when people transition, it's just like this crazy thing where they dive into something without really thinking about it. And maybe that misconception exists because trans people are dealing with something internally for so long, and then it apparently all of a sudden are saying, I can't live this way anymore. I need to make these changes. But we're very, very careful. And I think a lot of trans people are extremely careful about taking that step.
Yeah, it's funny because you think about, there's probably so many trans people out there that are on hormone replacement therapy, and you guys just don't know it. and they don't want to be open about it, and they're just trying to find ways to cope with it. And that's fine too. If that works for people, that's great.
With it being such a big decision, it's understandable that you started and stopped. But I was so relieved when you went back on because it was clear to me how much it was helping. And the funny thing is, a lot of times in like political debates, the hormones come up, and this is like a big flashpoint. But hormone replacement therapy, so many cisgender people use hormone replacement therapy, right? Women going through menopause, men who want to boost their testosterone. It's used in a lot of different ways. So it's funny to me that just because it's moving across this gender binary, that's really why it bothers people. But it's something that's widely used, and people need help with balancing their hormones. It's such a normal thing. And for you, it just felt so organic. Like I remember when you went on estrogen and talking about the differences.
Yes, I remember taking my estradiol for the first time. And within a short period of time, I instantly could tell the difference. It was like the brain fog had just moved.
Yeah, you said, I feel like I did when I was a kid.
Yes, and that was the best way I could describe it to you at the time, was that I just felt a lot more free. It was like this big, heavy, rigid weight was taken off of me. I just realized that testosterone did not agree with me. Like it was not something I ever enjoyed, even though I got used to it. It was something that looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel a lot more free and a lot more light.
And when she said, I feel like a kid again, that was my first moment of this is going to work. This is going to help you, because it reminded me of that inner child. I think we all have that, like, that feeling of being a kid and being free. And so when the estrogen did that for you, I was really relieved.
Yeah, and the longer I've been on hormone replacement therapy, I think it's given me a broader perspective of what it has done for me. I feel like now that I can say that I've been on hormones for 3 years, that it's drastically changed the way that I see the world.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed, like over the past 3 years, is how much more you're in touch with your emotions and other people's emotions.
I think that is one side effect of estradiol, is it definitely puts you more in touch with your feelings. I didn't realize like what a rigid person I was before that. I would bottle up my feelings a lot more. And I think the gift that this has given me is being able to really process a lot of pain that of course has to do with being transgender, but then also giving me like a broader view and color in the world.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed about you as well is when someone else is going through something, she feels it a lot more strongly. You really feel and like empathize with people. Oh, that's like such a difficult thing. And that is different than before. Not that, of course, you cared about people's feelings, but you feel it like so much more strongly.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm more emotional than you are now.
Yeah. And before you transitioned, I mean, that probably was not really ever the case, right? Like I'm a very emotional person. And it's been interesting stepping more into that role of, because every relationship has like a feng shui or like a polarity, right? Where I've stepped into the role more of being like the strong one, or like holding space for emotion rather than being the emotional one.
We take our turns.
We do. We take our turns for sure.
But overall, I think it's been a very positive thing for me, feelings and all.
I mean, I think being in touch with your emotions is like, it's something that it does make the highs and lows bigger, but it at least makes me feel more present. Like when I'm in touch with my emotions, I'm happy that you're able to experience that. I think it's great.
I would say one huge takeaway from my experience is it's taught me that the individual that I saw myself as, I often define myself as being, was largely made up from the testosterone in my body. Like I reacted in the world, in my environments, largely depending on how I felt. And I know that feels like common sense, but I wish everyone could have the experience of what that feels like to go from one polarity of testosterone to estradiol and experience what it's like to have a whole range of other emotions as well. And so what it's helped me do is really to detach from the certainty of how I see Shaye and who Shaye is, and more focus on the here and now.
Yeah, it's like you start to realize you've got like your mind and your soul, but your body has all this stuff going on with it, right? Which testosterone was not working for you before, but you might have thought that was just like on the level of your personality, but it really was something you were experiencing. And so many things with mental health in general are that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have different hormonal balances that contribute to how we experience the world.
Yeah, I believe we often get caught up in the story of what we're experiencing. And if we can sometimes pull ourselves away from that and just recognize that sometimes what we're feeling is largely made up from how chemically we're feeling in that moment. So,
One thing that's interesting too is I always associated female hormones as like pretty much like the biggest pain in life. As someone who has had like reproductive challenges, and hormones are like this mystery, like, sometimes you're feeling one way or sometimes you're feeling another. It's been really interesting and kind of healing in a way, seeing how female hormones have been so restorative for you. And it's caused me to see, like, yeah, all of these ups and downs, all these cyclical things that come with estrogen for me are a positive thing. They're not just like, oh, this is some illogical challenge that women have to deal with. It helps us to like embrace life. And yes, there are highs and lows that come with that. But it's part of what makes life really beautiful.
yeah.
All right, baby, go forth and slay.
Slay.